Hello, my name is Ken, and today I'm going to talk about how to cope with with the paranoid aspect of having schizophrenia. Now, first of all, I want to address the question of what is paranoia. Paranoia is it can come in a variety of forms, but basically, it's the fear of 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 some irrational idea. You it's an irrational thought, and it involves psychosis too. Now, in one of my earlier videos, when I talked about delusions, I sort of connected that to uh, pleasant, uh, pleasant psychosis, where I would consider paranoia to be an unpleasant part of psychosis. Because what the reason why I call delusions a pleasant part of psychosis is because it's with a delusion you're actually a lot of times believing that you're somebody important or powerful, and this gives you a feeling of well-being, of a feeling of elation, of euphoria and hubris that that makes you feel greater than what you are. Whereas with paranoia, it's an unpleasant psychosis because that's where you're feeling that you're being persecuted or or harassed or your life is threatened because of some invisible organization or forces that are beyond your control. And schizophrenia, for the for once you get the full blown symptoms of schizophrenia, 9 times out of 10, you're going to feel paranoid. Uh, that's why they call it paranoid schizophrenia, although that may be what they used to call it. I think the psychiatric profession has changed the label of schizophrenia, and I don't think they use paranoid schizophrenia anymore. But if you have schizophrenia, 9 times out of 10, you're going to feel paranoid, and this paranoia can come in many forms. Basically, it's a fear of something bad's going to happen to you that's beyond your control, that is not based on reality. And in your mind, uh, it comes out as a mixture of your thoughts, your normal thoughts, and your feelings. Because you're thinking about something rationally and it brings fear to you. So your thoughts and your feelings become mixed. And psychosis is involved. That is, the idea that you can be seeing things that nobody else can see, just like with delusions. Some examples of paranoia, there's like you think other people are talking about you, you think other people are laughing at you, you think people are following you, you think people are conspiring against you. You think someone is trying to poison you or kill you. A lot of times, schizophrenics are afraid to go out of their place of residence because they think that the moment they go out, that there's some sniper somewhere that's going to shoot them. And many schizophrenics have the feeling that the government is involved in trying to make their life bad or persecute them, and there's also secret societies, and that a person may think is persecuting an individual. Psychosis and paranoia. Paranoid thoughts are due to altered reality. There's some way that something happening in the brain that makes your paranoid thoughts seem real to you, although to the rest of the population of the world, they're totally wild and crazy. Like, for example, you may think that airplanes or helicopters are following you. That's one paranoid thought that I had. That, whenever I see a plane or a helicopter or something flying through the air, that it had some special meaning to me. Also, another paranoid thought that I would have is that I would see vanity plates, and they would give me messages about the future or some current event. And that brings up a point. A lot of paranoid thoughts and ideas come from your interpretation of reality. Schizophrenics have a tendency to interpret reality far more than the average person. And I'll give you an example of this. Suppose you're sitting out on your balcony and you're talking to a friend, or maybe you're down on the ground floor talking to a friend, and a car comes down the street and parks across the street, and the car is running, and a person is sitting in the car, maybe smoking a cigarette, may not. Now, to the average person, they would think that the car is parked there because they're waiting for somebody to come down from their house and get in the car and go with them because they have some event planned or appointment planned. But to the paranoid schizophrenic, that car can take on a whole new meaning. It can be like that car is waiting there for all sorts of thoughts come into a schizophrenic's head. Schizophrenics are notorious interpreters. They read far too deeply into what other people are doing. One thing that you can, with paranoia, you can have physical effects based on your paranoia. You can have panic attacks. Like when I was talking about the car parked across the street, you may be out in the front of your house talking to another person, and you see the car across the street, and the fear and the worry and the thoughts that flow into your head could give you a panic attack, and and the cumulative effect of feeling paranoid and worrying about whether somebody's going to kill you can give you more physical symptoms, aches and pains in your body, chest pains. Now, if you have chest pains, I suggest that you go have them checked out with your physician to make sure they're not, it's not anything serious. But personally, I have, you know, it seems like every 6 months or so, for the past 30 years, that's about as long as I've had schizophrenia. I've had chest pains, and in the early years, I used to go to the doctor and he'd give me a stress test and everything, and he says your heart is fine, and what you want to do to deal with these strange experiences that you are experiencing is you want to get in touch with your mind and your body. I mean, before you get schizophrenia, you could say you know yourself. You know what you're going to do. You know how you behave in certain situations. Then schizophrenia hits and everything is thrown into the garbage can as far as your thoughts about yourself. You're having feelings and thoughts that you've never had before. And it's very confusing and it's very disarming. Now you have to start from ground, start from the ground level, actually the basement, and relearn, how your body behaves and how your mind behaves and how you behave with schizophrenia. And that's going to take a lot of work because you have interfering thoughts, voices going on in your head. And it's hard to find patterns when you can't think very well. But it can be done. Your interpretations may be wrong sometimes, and sometimes you have to listen to another person that has experience with people with mental illness, like a therapist, to give you examples of other people that what other people have done to deal with these experiences. Like I remember I was in a group session once, and I was talking with this one woman, and she was saying that helicopters and airplanes follow her. And I was saying, I have that same experience myself. And she sort of looked at me twice and said, that cannot be, because they're following me for a special reason. Now, what you have to do when you find things like that conflict with your personal experience is you have to look at them objectively and say, hey, maybe this is not maybe my interpretation of these events are wrong. Maybe it has to do with something in my thought processes. Maybe it has something to do with schizophrenia rather than me. Maybe it's the schizophrenia that's real and not my own special world that's real. Because schizophrenics experience a lot of the same symptoms. They get a lot of the same paranoia and they get a lot of the same delusion. Like a lot of schizophrenics are paranoid about the government. Now, and the government has this, and each individual one thinks that the government is persecuting them and for sinister purposes. Now, if they were to talk to another schizophrenic who says he's also being persecuted by the government and for sinister purposes, and maybe a light goes off in his head and he says, hey, maybe it's not that the government is persecuting him for sinister purposes. Maybe it's the schizophrenia. You have to think like that. You have to make connections. You have to see patterns in your experience and learn from them and make conclusions. Another thing that that happens, another paranoid experience I've had is the fear of poisoning. And this I've seen in another individual with schizophrenia. I remember one time I was at a workshop and I had gotten a bag of coffee beans from a food pantry. And I said, I don't have a coffee grinder. So what am I going to do with these coffee beans? They're in good shape. I think they were like Starbucks or something like that. So I went up to this woman and I said, do you want some coffee? And I offered them to her. And she took them. And I think about a week later, she came back with one of the staff people at the workshop, and she gave the coffee beans back to me. And here I'm doing the interpreting, and maybe she got the impression that I was trying to poison her, when actually it was like a generous gesture on my part. It was something that I didn't need. But maybe she thought that I was trying to poison her, giving her poisoned coffee beans. But I have had that experience. I have had the experience where, I thought people were trying to poison me. And the way I worked it through is I just let time do its work. That's one thing you can do. You can let time just transpire. For example, if, people are trying to kill you, and they've been trying to kill you ever since you had schizophrenia, and you've had schizophrenia for 30 years. Well, if they were trying to kill you, they certainly would have done it after 30 years. So what's going on there? Are people really trying to kill you, or are they, or is it just some sort of symptom of your schizophrenia? After a while, these fears, they don't have any validity. They don't have any no grounds for them to stand on with time. I used to get aches and pains in my body and chest pains, and I used to get panic attacks, but now I don't, you know, and I don't worry about those things as much as I used to. It's a matter of learning and adapting and adjusting and growing as a person with a mental illness. And it takes time. You're not gonna have a light bulb go up in your head and say, hey, all this stuff, all this paranoid stuff is bunk. You know, it's gonna take time, because these are your feelings you're working with. You know, when you're working with paranoia, you're working with your fears and your worries, and you have to accept your fears and emotions as valid feelings that you are actually feeling. And you'll know when the time is right for you to start ignoring these challenging and ignoring these paranoid ideas. Now, those are some of the effective means of coping with paranoia. Some of the clinical some clinical examples of coping with paranoia is a cognitive restructuring. That's something that you run into, where the idea that you know thoughts produce feelings, and so you have this thought, and it's you think that people are gonna kill you, and you produces this feeling, which is fear, and the idea is to change the thought so that you can change the feeling. There's thought stopping. There's certain when you have a paranoid thought, sometimes you can read in literature, in books on how to cope with depression, that when you have a negative thought, you put this rubber band around your wrist, and when you have a negative thought, you just pull on the rubber band and let it snap your wrist. That's called thought stopping. There's positive self-talk. The idea that you have this self-talk going on in your head, and that's basically, positive self-talk is basically for negative thoughts, not necessarily for paranoia, but I suppose to go in for paranoia. You want to change your negative self-talk or your paranoid self-talk into positive self-talk and uplifting self-talk. There's confronting your fears, which is the hardest one of all, because I know anybody that is feeling that somebody's trying to kill you, kill them, it's going to be hard for them to just switch, because the fear is valid and the fear has to be acknowledged, and maybe confronting your fears gradually, because fear can be paralyzing, and fear can be so severe that it interferes with your daily activities. But maybe you can gradually go out for a little bit, go for a walk, maybe down the block and then back in the house, and then maybe the next day go a little farther, and the next day go a little farther after that, so that you get accustomed to being out of the house. It's reality checking, where you test your paranoia. You test your paranoia with other people, Like when I brought up the license plate, the vanity license plates that have messages, that give me messages that I sort of reality checked that with a friend, and he says he doesn't see it, and that challenges your thought and says, hey, maybe this is not true. Maybe this interpretation doesn't mean what it means. You know, you have to have positive relationships, people that you can trust, positive relationships that give you positive feedback and help you cope with your paranoia. You don't want to be around people that bring you down. You want to be around people that build you up. So, there's a few ideas on paranoia. I hope you find them useful. And I hope that you, come to the point where you're in touch with your body and your mind and your spirit, and you can live every day as, with schizophrenia as if you don't even have schizophrenia. Thank you and have a good day.